Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at the Romulan faction for Star Trek Ascendancy. The Romulans were one of the original Star Trek villains. They were always kind of secluded. They keep to themselves. They're very secretive. And they have their cloaking ships. And there's a lot of mystery about them. And they don't socialize well with others. And if they do run into others, they're very wary. They kind of keep to themselves. They avoid direct confrontation when possible. That said, because of the cloaking technology and they do have some advancements in certain areas, they are perfectly capable of defending themselves as well as starting fights on their own terms. So first off, we have our two racial abilities here. Our bonus is cultural superiority. We take a culture whenever we complete an advancement, picturing a culture token. It's kind of a new mechanic only for the Romulans. A lot of our advancement cards will have culture tokens on them. You get free culture just for researching advancements, and you get the bonus of the advancement as well. Next we have suspicious, and this is our hindrance. Whenever you receive a trade agreement, you exhaust it immediately. You refresh it at the next round's upkeep. So basically, the turn you make a trade agreement, you're not going to get anything from it. It takes an entire turn before it starts producing any resources for you. So that's kind of a skeptical thing with the Romulans, why they're hesitant to make trade agreements with people, because if I give you a trade agreement right away, you start making a profit off it. It takes me an extra turn. So one of the ways I've worked around that, a lot of things I like to do when I'm playing the Romulans, is I will offer them my 1 for their 3. And most people go, well, hell no, I'm not going to do that. And you go, wait, there's more. Next round, I'll give you my 2. The round after that, I'll give you my 3. And the way that works is, the first round, they're getting 1, you're getting nothing. The second round, they get 2 more, you get their 3. So in those 2 rounds, you've gotten 3 of theirs, they've gotten 3 of yours. So it evens out. Now granted, that only works the first time. You can do it with the other ones. It's less productive to do it that way. So maybe you give them the 1 and then upgrade to the 2 for their 2 and so on. But there's other deals you can make besides just a trade agreement to make it more worthwhile for the trade agreements. Because if I give you my 3 and you give me your 3, you collect your 3 production from me while the one you gave me is still exhausted, and then you decide to attack me or break our trade agreement. Well, now you've gotten 3 production, I've got nothing out of the deal. So it makes the Romulans very hesitant to want to trade with people unless there's that little extra incentive in there to make it fair for them. So keep that in mind when you're playing as the Romulans or when you're playing against them. You may have to give them something a little extra just to get by their skittishness. On to our advancement here. The starting advancement's probably better than most of the other factions. It's one of the better ones in the game. It's the Romulan cloaking device. It allows all your ships to have first strike during battles on your turn. Now granted, it's on your turn, so keep that in mind. If somebody attacks you, you don't get that. You have to initiate the attack on your turn, but it allows you to pick the fights when and where you want. You get that first round of combat in, maybe you can disable or destroy, wipe out a fleet before it even gets to return fire. Some of the fleets that only have like a 4-ship fleet here with a 3-ship minimum, if you can kill 2 ships out of that fleet before they get to fire back, the fleet will disband and they no longer have that bonus when attacking you back. So first strike can be a game changer if you're doing things on your terms. So overall, each of the factions in the base set of the game play completely different. The Federation wants to go out, they want to explore, they want to find civilizations, they want to find phenomenon. The Klingons need resources, they want to go out, they want to punch people in the face. The Romulans, on the other hand, like to stick to themselves, sit back in their own corner, build up a defensive wall, kind of network a bunch of systems off of your home system, and then kind of block them in, using up all the available trade lanes on those to funnel your enemies so that they can only come at you through one path if possible. Your main goal is to build up as many research nodes as you can. If you can find these blue nodes on planets, those are the planets you want to colonize. Sometimes you can even forego colonizing certain planets just to find ones with extra research. you want to find phenomenons and things like that. Boost up your shields so that you can sit in the phenomenons like the Federation does and farm that research that you can put towards your advancement projects. You need the research nodes in order to have multiple projects going. You need income from research in order to spend on those projects. Ideally, the big thing with Romulans is that you're focused on those projects. You want to complete as many of those projects as possible. Some of them even give you culture. It's an extra form of culture where all the other races can get it by combat, by exploring, by things like that. Yours is by researching, and you get the cool advancement abilities to boot. So that's really where your focus ideally wants to be. To help us out with that, we have a couple different fleet options. The first one is a science fleet, and when it braves hazards, you only roll for a single ship out of the fleet, similar to the science one that the Federation have. Actually, it's exactly like the one the Federation has. It even has the ability where once you're in a phenomenon, you can sit in the phenomenon and brave it each turn without spending a command. So it's exactly the same as the Federation one. Next, we have a battle group. Exactly the same as the Federation one. I'm sensing a trend here. 6 ships, and they reroll hits to 1 in space battles. I think the Klingons even had one of those. Pretty generic fleet, but it's combat ready if you do want to go into battle. The third one's the unique one of the bunch. Third one is a mining fleet. And if this fleet occupies an undeveloped system or a phenomenon, they can use a command and take 2 productions. You can only do it once per turn, but you can basically park that fleet somewhere and just farm production. So it's an interesting concept there, and I like the fact that it works in Phenomenon too, so you can sit in the Phenomenon and use a command to mine, get the production. Use another command if you want to brave the Phenomenon, get the resource or the research, and so on. So kind of a double dipping fleet there. They don't have the bonus that the science one does, where it doesn't take the extra command, but that would be a little powerful. I don't know how often you're going to find yourself in orbit of an unoccupied, undeveloped system to make use of that. Although, spending a command to gain 2 production may be more beneficial to you than colonizing a system that you can't build nodes on until the next round. So colonizing is going to cost you a ship, it's going to cost you a culture, and you colonize the planet, then you don't get anything out of it until the next turn when you get to your building phase. You can build nodes on there, and then at the end of that turn, then you can start finally generating resources from it. Whereas this, you can just spend a command, get 2 resources. Kind of a nice one. The flip side of all of these is a 9-ship generic fleet. So 1 ship lighter than the Klingons. You don't get as many offensive bonuses. You do have the first strike in there, which is nice. Still a formidable fleet to see 9 Romulan ships coming at you in a fleet. Definitely something to keep an eye out for, especially if they do have their weapons and shields build up a little bit. It's a very imposing thing. You can have 3 to 9 in those fleets, so depending on how many ships you have laying around, they're good for blocking up warp lanes or defending your borders as well. So on to our advancements. Romulans have numerous good advancements in here. It's all going to depend on your type of playstyle, but there's a lot in here I could recommend. First up is the Imperial Science Initiative, and not only do you get a culture for researching this one, and a warp token, which boosts your ship's warp distance, but whenever you launch a new project, you get to take a research token from the supply, put it on that project. So basically it makes everything you research from that point on cost 1 less. And that's a really powerful ability, especially if you can get it out early on. Next we have Romulan Disruptors, another one that you get culture for. And this one basically gives you the Klingon perk of your rolls to 6 are always a hit, regardless of opponent shields. It's a hit or miss. If you're doing a lot of combat, it's definitely worth it. If you're avoiding combat, for the most part, it's not really worth researching that one. Maybe you want the extra culture out of it, but it is nice to have, though. The Telshar monitoring post is another great one. Again, another one you get culture for. And every time a rival finishes a project, you roll a die, and if it's equal to or lower than the number of star bases you control, you can add a research token from the supply to one of your projects. Mid to late game, when you have all three of your star bases out, so basically it's a 50-50 chance of what you roll. Early on, not as good, but free research going to your projects is always nice. Combine that with the science initiative that makes everything cost less. I mean, you can put a 3 project into play, put a token on it, only needs 2, use that, it only needs 1 more turn before you can activate it. So huge bonuses there in combo. Orbital Defense Grid gives your planetary nodes first strike. It's kind of nice when somebody's attacking you, especially if they're using a smaller fleet. Has a chance of weakening them to the point where they can't win before they even get to attack. Cloaked Orbital Mines has a chance of destroying ships as soon as they enter your system. Very nice if you're afraid of people invading your borders. You basically have to give them permission or they're going to take damage. Superior Combat Maneuvers gives you a bonus to reroll all your failed to hit rolls. Very nice if you're going the more aggressive route and getting into combat. Then we have Superior Targeting Array, which allows your ships and nodes to reroll ones, kind of like the Battle Group fleet does, but it lets you do it for any of your fleets, any of your ships, or your nodes. And then Superior Shield Harmonics is another good one. Allows you to ignore the first casualty in space battles. And there's a few other really good ones in there too. Honestly, the advanced cloaking device that just came up, that's a pretty good one too. Rival ships no longer block your movement, so you can basically fly right past them. You can also enter warp when somebody attacks you instead of fighting, so if you're trying to avoid fighting or getting to where you want to go. And of course you have your espionage one that allows you to exhaust this to exhaust somebody else's. And lots of good ones in there. There's actually, that one's another really nice one. If you're afraid people are attacking you, your research nulls get extra dice during planetary invasions. Helps you defend your planets. As I said, your big strength here is going to be to focus on research. Focus on especially those ones that give you the bonuses. And early on you can get those out and make your other ones cost less. The more of those you can get into play, the more ascendancy, the more of those you can get into play, the more culture you're going to gather, the faster you're going to get out additional ones, which are going to give you 2 paths. I don't know as if Romulans are going to get an ascendancy victory all that often. Probably you're going to get to 3 or so, and the big combat things are going to start, and that's where you want to have your ships at least capable of defending themselves. If you can manage to pull in some planets nearby your home that have multiple culture nodes, or you can get a nice little farm going there, you might be able to just sit back, turtle, defend your borders, play like Romulans would, and win through culture. But where all the other races have a steady income of culture through their perk, yours is hit or miss depending on the advancements that you research, so it can go both ways. Ideally though, research as many of those as you can. They will in turn boost up your ships and fleets to the point where you can hold your own, you can go out and attack people, and you might be able to get that combat victory. Anyway, that is a look at the Romulan faction for Star Trek Ascendancy. Hope it helps you in a little bit knowing what advancements are good to work on early game and the basic strategy of how to play them. In the end, everybody has their own strategies anyway, and certain things work better than others depending on the play group you're in and so on. So, either way, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.